Welcome to Snoozecast, the podcast designed to help you fall asleep. On Snoozecast, we read excerpts from public domain works and occasionally original stories. We'd like to thank our listeners. If you enjoy our show, please review us on Apple Podcasts and also share it with a friend. This episode is brought to you by A Fair Price. Tonight, we'll be reading Bartleby the Scrivener, A Story of Wall Street, a short story by Herman Melville, first serialized anonymously in 2 parts in 1853. In the story, a Wall Street lawyer hires a new clerk who, after an initial bout of hard work, refuses to do any task required of him. Though no great success at the time of publication, Bartleby the Scrivener is now among the most noted of American short stories and considered a precursor of absurdist literature. Let's get cozy. Close your eyes. Relax your body into the softness of your bed. Now, take a few deep breaths. Bartleby the Scrivener, A Story of Wall Street by Herman Melville. I am a rather elderly guy. The nature of my avocations for the closing 30 years has delivered me into extra than regular contact with what might appear an exciting and somewhat singular set of guys, of whom as yet nothing that I know of has ever been written. I imply the regulation copyists, or scriveners. I actually have acknowledged very many of them, professionally and privately, and if I thrilled, ought to relate divers histories at which excellent-natured gents may smile, and sentimental souls would possibly weep. But I waive the biographies of all other scriveners for a few passages within the lifestyles of Bartleby, who became a scrivener of the strangest I ever noticed or heard of. While of other regulation copyists I might write the complete lifestyles, of Bartleby nothing of that kind can be executed. I accept as true with that no substances exist for a full and fine biography of this guy. It is an irreparable loss to literature. Bartleby was one of those beings of whom not anything is ascertainable, besides from the authentic sources, and in his case the ones are very small. What my personal astonished eyes noticed of Bartleby, that is all I understand of him. Besides, indeed, one vague file so as to seem in the sequel. Ere introducing the Scrivener, as he first regarded to me, its miles match I make a few mention of myself, my personnel, my enterprise, my chambers, and popular environment, due to the fact some such description is indispensable to an adequate knowledge of the chief individual about to be supplied. Imprimis, I am a person who, from his teens upwards, has been full of a profound conviction that the easiest way of existence is the fine. Hence, although I belong to a profession proverbially energetic and nervous, even to turbulence, at times, yet not anything of that kind have I ever suffered to invade my peace. I am one of those unambitious lawyers who never addresses a jury, or in any manner attracts down public applause, but in the cool tranquility of a comfortable retreat, do a comfortable commercial enterprise among wealthy guys' bonds and mortgages and identified deeds. All who recognize me don't forget me an eminently safe guy, the overdue John Jacob Astor, a personage little given to poetic enthusiasm, had no hesitation in pronouncing my first grand point to be prudence, my next technique. I do not communicate it in arrogance, but definitely record the fact that I turned into no longer unemployed in my career via the past due John Jacob Astor, a call which, I admit, I like to repeat, for it hath a rounded and orbicular sound to it, and jewelry like unto bullion. I will freely upload that I become no longer insensible to the late John Jacob Astor's accurate opinion. Some time previous to the duration at which this little record starts, my avocations had been in large part expanded. The accurate antique workplace, now extinct inside the state of New York, of a master in chancery, had been conferred upon me. It became no longer a very onerous workplace, but very pleasantly remunerative. I seldom lose my mood. Lots extra seldom take pleasure in dangerous indignation at wrongs and outrages. However, I need to be authorized to be rash right here and claim that I recollect the sudden and violent abrogation of the workplace of master in chancery by means of the brand new Constitution as a premature act, inasmuch as I had counted upon a life lease of the profits, while I best acquired the ones of a few brief years, but this is by using the manor. My chambers had been upstairs, at North Wall Avenue. At one end they seemed upon the white wall of the indoors of a spacious sky-miled shaft, penetrating the building from top to backside. This view might have been taken into consideration rather tame than in any other case, poor in what panorama painters call life. But in that case, the view from the other give up on my chambers provided, at the least, a comparison, if nothing extra. In that direction, my home windows commanded an unobstructed view of a lofty brick wall, black through age and eternal shade, which wall required no spyglass to convey out its lurking beauties, but for the gain of all close, two-sighted spectators, changed into pushed as much as within 10 feet of my window panes. Owing to the wonderful height of the encircling buildings, and my chambers being on the second one ground, the sea language among this wall and mine now not a bit resembled a huge square cistern. At the length simply preceding the advent of Bartleby, I had 2 persons as copyists in my employment, and a promising lad as an office boy. First, Turkey, 2D, Nippers, 0.33, Ginger Nut. These might also appear names, the like of which are not normally discovered in the directory. In truth, they were nicknames, collectively conferred upon every other by my 3 clerks, and have been deemed expressive of their respective folks or characters. Turkey become a short, pursy Englishman of about my personal age, that is, someplace now not some distance from 60. In the morning, one may say, his face was of a quality florid hue, but after 12 o'clock, meridian, his dinner hour, it blazed like a grate full of Christmas coals, and persevered blazing, but, because it had been with the gradual wane, until 6 o'clock p.m., or thereabouts, after which I saw no greater of the proprietor of the face, which gaining its meridian with the sun, appeared to set with it, to upward push, culminate, and decline day after today, which the like regularity and undiminished glory. There are many singular coincidences I even have recognized inside the root of my life, no longer the least among which changed into the truth that exactly why Turkey displayed his fullest beams from his pink and radiant countenance, simply, then, to, at that essential moment, started out the day-by-day duration after I taken into consideration his commercial enterprise capacities as significantly disturbed for the rest of the 24 hours. Not that he became absolutely idle, or averse to business then, some distance from it. The problem was, he turned into apt to be altogether too lively. There became a extraordinary, inflamed, flurried, flighty recklessness of pastime about him. He would be incautious in dipping his pen into its inkstand. All his blots upon my documents have been dropped there after 12 o'clock meridian. Indeed, now not handiest, might he be reckless and regrettably given to making blots within the afternoon. However, some days he went similarly, and became instead noisy. At such instances, too, his face flamed with augmented blazonry, as if cannel coal had been heaped on anthracite. He made an unsightly racket with his chair, spilled his sand-field in mending his pens, impatiently cut up them all to pieces, and threw them on the ground in a surprising passion, stood up and leaned over his table, boxing his papers approximately in a most indecorous manner, very sad to behold in an elderly man like him. Nevertheless, as he turned into, in lots of approaches, a maximum precious man or woman to me, and all the time earlier than 12 o'clock meridian, was the quickest, steadiest creature too, conducting a superb deal of work in a fashion now not easy to be matched. For those motives, I turned into inclined to overlook his eccentricities, even though indeed, occasionally, I remonstrated with him. I did this very gently, however, due to the fact, although the civilest, nay, the blandest and most reverential of fellows inside the morning, but inside the afternoon he changed into disposed, upon provocation, to be slightly rash along with his tongue, in truth insolent. Now, valuing his morning services as I did, and resolved no longer to lose them, but at the equal time made uncomfortable through his infected methods after 12 o'clock, and being a man of peace, unwilling by way of my admonitions to call forth unseemly retorts from him, I took upon me, one Saturday midday, he became usually worse on Saturdays, to hint to him, very kindly, that possibly now that he became developing old, it is probably nicely to abridge his labors in quick. He need not come to my chambers after 12 o'clock. However, dinner over, had quality passed domestic to his lodgings, and relaxation himself until tea-time. But no, he insisted upon his afternoon devotions. His countenance became intolerably fervid, as he oratorically assured me, gesticulating with an extended ruler at the opposite cease of the room, that if his services inside the morning had been beneficial, how quintessential, then, within the afternoon. "With submission, sir," said Turkey in this event, "I don't forget myself your right-hand guy. In the morning, I but marshal and installation my columns. However, inside the afternoon, I positioned myself at their head, and gallantly charged the foe therefore," and he made a violent thrust with the ruler. "But the blots, Turkey," intimidated I. "True, but with submission, sir, behold these hairs. I am getting older. Surely, sir, a blot or of a warm afternoon, this always to be significantly entreated in opposition to gray hairs. Old age, even though it blot the page, is honorable. With submission, sir, we have both become antique." This enchantment to my fellow feeling changed into hardly to be resisted. At all events, I saw that move he could not, so I made up my thoughts to let him live, resolving, however, to see to it that in the afternoon he had to do with my less critical papers. Nippers, the second one on my listing, was a whiskered, sallow, and, upon the entire, alternatively piratical-looking young man of approximately 25. I always deemed him the victim of two evil powers, ambition and indigestion. The ambition turned into evinced by way of a positive impatience of the obligations of an insignificant copyist, an unwarrantable usurpation of strictly expert affairs, including the authentic drawing up of criminal files. The indigestion appeared betokened in an occasional apprehensiveness, testiness, and grinning irritability, causing the enamel to audibly grind together over errors devoted in copying. Needless maledictions hissed in place of spoken, in the warmness of business, and mainly with the aid of a continual discontent with the peak of the desk in which he labored. Though of a totally ingenious mechanical turn, Nippers could in no way get to this desk to fit him. He positioned chips below it, blocks of various types, bits of pasteboard, and at remaining went so far as to strive an excellent adjustment by way of final portions of folded blotting paper. But no invention would solution. If, for the sake of easing his lower back, he delivered the desk lid at a sharp perspective properly up, closer to his chin, and wrote there like a man using the steep roof of a Dutch residence for his table. Then he declared that it stopped the circulation in his fingers. If now he lowered the desk to his waistbands and stooped over it in writing, then there has been a sore aching in his back. In brief, the reality of the matter was, Nippers knew not what he desired, or if he desired any element, it became to be rid of our Scrivener's table altogether. Among the manifestations of his diseased ambition became a passion he had for receiving visits from certain ambiguous-looking fellows in seedy coats, whom he called his clients. Indeed, I became aware that not most effective became he at instances extensive of a ward politician, but he, from time to time, did a touch enterprise at the justices' courts, and changed into not unknown on the steps of the tombs. I actually have excellent cause to accept as true, with but that one person who referred to as upon him at my chambers, and who, with a grand air, he insisted become his client, become no apart from a dun and the alleged name deed, a invoice. But with all his failings, and the annoyances he prompted me, Nippers, like his compatriot Turkey, changed into a totally beneficial guy to me, wrote a neat, speedy hand, and, whilst he chose, turned into no longer deficient in a gentlemanly form of deportment. Added to this, he usually, wearing a gentlemanly form of manner, and so, by the way, reflected credit score upon my chambers, whereas with admire to Turkey, I had a lot ado to preserve him from being a reproach to me. His garments were apt to appearance oily and scent of consuming houses. He wore his pantaloons very free and baggy in summer. His coats have been execrable, his hat no longer to be dealt with, but at the same time as the hat turned into an element of indifference to me, inasmuch as his herbal civility and deference, as a based Englishman, usually led him to doff it at the instant he entered the room, yet his coat turned into some other count. Concerning his coats, I reasoned with him, but with no effect. The reality was, I think, that a person of so small an income couldn't have the funds to sport any such lustrous face and lustrous coat at one and the equal time. As Nippers as soon as located, Turkey's cash went mainly for red ink. One winter day I presented Turkey with a exceptionally respectable searching coat of my very own, a padded gray coat of a maximum comfortable warm temperature, and which buttoned immediately up from the knee to the neck. Turkey might respect the favor and hamper his rashness and obstreperousness of afternoons, but no, I verily accept as true with that buttoning himself up in so downy and blanket-like a coat had a pernicious effect upon him, upon the identical principle that too much oats are horrific for horses. In fact, exactly as a rash, restive horse is stated to experience his oats. So Turkey felt his coat. It made him insolent. He turned into a man whom prosperity harmed. Though, regarding the self-indulgent behavior of Turkey, I had my personal, private surmises. Yet touching Nippers I changed into properly persuaded that anything might be his faults in other respects. He became, at the least, a temperate young man, but certainly nature herself appeared to have been his vinter, and at his birth charged him so thoroughly with an irritable, brandy-like disposition that every one next potations have been needless. When I take into account how, amid the stillness of my chambers, Nippers might every now and then impatiently upward thrust from his seat and stooping over his desk, spread his hands extensive apart, capture the whole table, and circulate it and jerk it with a grim, grinding motion on the floor, as if the table had been a perverse voluntary agent, motive on thwarting and vexing him, I plainly understand that for Nippers, brandy and water were already superfluous. It became lucky for me that, due to its odd cause, indigestion, the irritability and consequent nervousness of Nippers had been specifically observable in the morning, while inside the afternoon he turned into comparatively mild, so that Turkey's paroxysms most effective coming on approximately 12 o'clock, I in no way had to do with their eccentricities at one time. Their suits relieved each other like guards. When Nippers turned into on, Turkey's became off, and vice versa. This became a terrific herbal arrangement under the occasions. Gingernut, the .33 on my list, became a lad some 12 years vintage. His father became a carman, ambitious of seeing his son at the bench rather than a cart before he died. So he sent him to my office as student at law, errand boy, and cleanser and sweeper, at the price of $1 every week. He had a bit table to himself, but he did no longer use it lots. Upon inspection, the drawer exhibited a great array of the shells of diverse styles of nuts. Indeed, to this short-witted kid's the whole noble technological know-how of the regulation turned into contained in a nutshell. Not the least a few of the employments of Gingernut, in addition to one which he discharged with the maximum alacrity, became his duty as cake and apple purveyor for Turkey and Nippers. Copying law papers being proverbially dry, husky type of enterprise, my Scriveners have been fain to moisten their mouths very regularly with Spitzenbergs available on the several stalls nigh the custom house and post office. Also, they dispatched Gingernut very frequently for that abnormal cake. Small, flat, spherical, and really highly spiced, after which he had been named by them. Of a chilly morning, while commercial enterprise was however stupid, Turkey could gobble up rankings of those cakes, as though they had been mere wafers. Certainly, they sell them at the rate of 6 or 8 for a penny, the scrape of his pen blending with the crunching of the crisp debris in his mouth. Of all of the fiery afternoon blunders and flurried rashnesses of Turkey, become his as soon as moistening a ginger cake among his lips and clapping it directly to a loan for a seal. I came within an ace of dismissing him then, but he mollified me by making an oriental bow and announcing, "With submission, sir, it was beneficent of me to locate you in stationery on my own account. Now, my authentic enterprise, that of a conveyancer and identity hunter and drawer up of recondite files of all types, turned into notably accelerated with the aid of receiving the master's office. They're changed into now awesome paintings for Scriveners, not simplest half to eye push the clerks already with me, but I must have extra assist. In answer to my advertisement, a motionless young man one morning stood upon my office threshold, the door being open, for it turned into summertime. I can see that determined now, pallidly neat, pitiably first-rate, incurably forlorn. It was Bartleby. After a few words touching his qualifications, I engaged him, satisfied to have among my corps of copyists a man of so singularly sedate an factor, which idea might operate beneficially upon the flighty temper of Turkey, and the fiery one in every of Nippers. I must have stated before that floor-glass folding doorways divided my premises into two components, one in which every of which turned into occupied by using for my Scriveners, the alternative on my own. According to my humor, I threw open those doorways, or closed them. I resolved to assign Bartleby a nook through the folding doors, but on my aspect of them, with the intention to have this quiet man within clean name, in case any trifling thing become to be achieved. I located his desk near up to a small aspect window in that a part of the room, a window which initially had afforded a lateral view. I located his desk near up to a small aspect window in that a part of the room, a window which initially had afforded a lateral view of certain grimy returned yards and bricks, but which, as a result, commanded at gift no view in any respect, even though it gave a few light. Within 3 feet of the panes was a wall, and the mild got here down from some distance above, among 2 lofty buildings, as from a completely small establishing in a dome. Still, in addition to a fine association, I procured a excessive green folding display screen, which would possibly totally isolate Bartleby from my sight, although now not do away with him from my voice, and for this reason, in a manner.